Hello and welcome to Views on News. I'm Jawad, Tehami, Chief of Army Staff. General Syed has asked the terrorists of Fitna al-Khawarij to surrender themselves before the state if they expect any mercy for themselves. According to Inter-Services Public Relations, the Army Chief said, let me quote, Allah Almighty has clearly mentioned in Holy Quran that these elements must be eliminated except those who seek mercy and repent and surrender to the state. Armed forces of Pakistan are fighting like comrades and in unison to stamp out menace of terrorism from the country. The nation and the youth are standing behind Pakistan Army, and we have the spirit of fighting, and we will continue to fight against the enemy. Pakistan Army will not permit perverted groups like Fitna al-Khawarij to impose their values on the country. The Army Chief also talked about Islam giving respect to women and reaffirmed that the nation will not allow to diminish that respect. Also, during the course of our conversation in today's show, we'll be taking up important points from the 35th report of the UN Sanction Support Monitoring Team, which says, let me quote, the status and the strength of TTP in Afghanistan had not changed. The ambition and scale of its attacks on Pakistan, though, has significantly increased with over 600 attacks during the reporting period, including from Afghan territory. The Taliban continue to provide TTP with logistical and operational space and financial support, with one member state noting that the family of Noor Wali Mahsood received a monthly payment of 3 million Afghanis. TTP established new training centers in Kunnar, Nangarhar, Khost and Paktika provinces while establishing recruitment within TTP cadres, including from the Afghan Taliban. Unquote. The number of other points also in this particular report that we'll be taking up for discussion in today's show. Before I introduce the panelists who are joining us both in the studio as well as online, let's take a listen to what the Chief of Army Staff, General Syed had to say when he was interacting with a group of young students in Rawalpindi.
It is always so heartening to interact with the youth of the country, and when we interact with you, honestly, that we are reassured of our future to be in the safe hands. For as long as the nation is standing behind Pakistan Army, especially the youth is standing behind Pakistan Army, and for as long as we have this spirit of this sacrifice inside us, Pakistan Army, inshallah, will not fall. We fight like comrades. हमें फौज में यही तो मजा है फौज का कि हमें बैठे लड़ रहे होते हैं, हमें कोई पता नहीं होता कौन पख्तून, कौन सिंधी, कौन बलोची, कौन पठान. हम कॉमरेड्स की तरह लड़ते हैं, बस साथियों की तरह. इस्लाम वो मजहब है दुनिया के अंदर सबसे पहला मजहब, और जिसने जो है वो औरत को जो है आसमान के ऊपर जो है पहुंचाया, उसने इज्जत दी. उसने whether she is a mother or she is a wife or she is a sister, किसी भी रोल में मैक्सिमम पॉसिबल जो है वो रिस्पेक्ट जो है वो आपके रिलीजन ने दिया औरत को. तो who are you to take it away today? Who are you? Who has given you this authority? Nobody can take it away. We will never ever allow this kind of perverted group to impose its values onto us.
Quite loud and a clear message delivered by Chief of Army Staff General Syed Asim. Let me quickly bring in our esteemed panel of guests. We are honored to be joined in the studio by Mr. Rear Admiral Retired Faisal Shah, Senior Analyst. Admiral Shah, thank you very much for taking time out for Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. Later on in the show, we'll be joined by other participants. As they join in, I'll be introducing them as well. Admiral Shah, the number of messages which have been delivered by Army Chief in this particular very interaction with the young students. Let's talk about the message that has been delivered to Fitna al-Khawarij, asking them to surrender if they expect any sort of mercy for themselves. What's your understanding regarding that? How forceful this particular message is?
I think it can't be more forceful than what Army Chief has said, because he quoted verses from Holy Quran. And that is the ultimate message that we have had for last 1400 years, and we all believe in it. So I think in the strongest manner that could have been, I think our Army Chief has used that. And now it should be, reckoned on the Khawarij, that what do we actually mean? What do we actually want from them? So they should now better understand it's a red line that Army Chief has drawn. And crossing that red line will certainly not be permitted by anybody. Now, what Army Chief has done, I think that's a very prudent step that he has taken. We say that 60% of our youth is population, and that's our greatest stake. We are responsible for their education, their counseling, and their preparedness for upcoming challenges. So their counseling and education is mandatory, and the buck should not stop here. I mean, it should not only be at this level that they should be counseled and educated, but I think at every level, because we are responsible to let them know what is the difference between right and wrong. The Khawarij are playing in a grey zone. They are actually misinterpreting Islamic values and propagating them through their own means. That's how there is a delusion, there is an illusion that is being created by them, and we have to save our youth from that. So this is, I think, something very important that we need to look into. This has to be taken up at the government level, and it should be in the universities, colleges, even in schools. We need to teach our children the difference between right and wrong.
Right. We are honored to be joined by other participants as well online, joining on Skype by Mr. Asif Durrani, former ambassador, also former Pakistan Special Representative for Afghanistan. Mr. Durrani, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Also on Skype, we are honored to be joined by Mr. Zahir, Shah Sherazi, security analyst. Mr. Sherazi, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Mr. Durrani, this particular interaction with the youth, the young students, Chief of Army Staff has delivered a message to Fitna al-Khawarij that they have to surrender to the writ of the state if they expect any mercy, and is also quoted verses from the Holy Quran that how such mischievous elements must be dealt with. What's your understanding how forceful this particular message is by the Army Chief?
Well, a message supported by action actually can make a difference. And I think action is being taken now, and these terrorists are on the run. TTP terrorists are on the run. And the best thing which has happened so far is that these TTP guys don't have governing spaces anywhere in Pakistan, and they are on the run. So, and then they are not a role model. They don't have an appeal. So I think there's a need to capitalize on that, and then take along the people. Youth are especially, they are in the forefront, but at the same time, all people of the area, especially in KP and Balochistan, they should be taken on board to face these terrorists and also corner them, because it is actually the narrative which will prevail ultimately. And normal common refrain should be that there is no room for guns, there is no room for forcibly enforcing agenda by any political party or any group. Now, these TTP are not a political party. They are terrorists. They are non-state actors, and no state anywhere in the world can allow the non-state actors to dictate their agenda through force. So I think this is a message which should be loud and clear, and I think this is what in the message by Army Chief was intended. Yes.
Right, Mr. Durrani, let me bring in Mr. Sherazi into the discussion also. Mr. Sherazi, when the Army Chief talks of interacting with the youth, we also know for a fact there is a considerable percentage of the population in Pakistan of youth. These young people, how important is to bring them into confidence as to what the efforts, what the sacrifices the armed force in the entire nation has been rendering over the years and continues to do so in the fight against this particular menace?
Well, Jawad, thank you. I would just continue what Honorable Ambassador Durrani was mentioning, that the statements along with proper action and in proper direction, they are very important. And it's like we can say that the kinetic operations are very much active. the militants have been dislodged from their safe havens in the tribal areas, maybe on the bordering areas with Balochistan and Pakistani tribal areas with Afghanistan. But definitely the radicalization of this region, which took like quite some decades, and it was an intended radicalization of an extremist Islam which was infused in the youth here. For what had been done practically to de-radicalize this region is very important. Now the youth are educated, they are very vibrant. Now you have different modes of communication. It's not just books, universities and colleges where they can have access to any kinds of thoughts, even like radicalization. And the militant strategy is now very much changed. So obviously, along with the proper governance and development of these far off and underdeveloped areas of Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, we have to forward the narrative which the army chief was mentioning today. That is very clear. All those non-state actors, which are there in the form of Fitna al-Khawarij or the banned TTP, or they are in the form of BLA, BNA, in the form of any warlord, carrying guns and arms, I think they are totally, rejected by the Pakistani state. So now we have to be on, a collective and cohesive strategy need to be, adopted when it comes to in-house, whipping out these radicalized elements in the society as well as those who are across the border. So importantly, Pakistan have have devised a strategy, revised the strategy what we had been doing. Actually, we had been very much kind of on a defensive, and across the border, whatever the things are coming, they are mostly from there. Then inside the country, the National Action Plan's unfinished agenda targeting the radicalized groups, their sympathizers, the elements who have sympathy with them, who are using their names sometime in one way or the other. But actually, we have to even speak to them if they are willing to lay down their arms, and we have to take action against them if they are not willing to accept the writ of the state. We have very good examples of Swat where the militants were like flushed out, the area was reclaimed. Same is the case in the tribal areas, most part. Yes, there are a few pockets where we can say they have sympathizers, they have supporters, but actually collectively we have to revise this strategy, that how we are going to deal with this new phenomena.
Mr. Sherazi, when we specifically talk about reaching out to the youth, particularly in the far-flung areas, you already mentioned of Balochistan, also in KP, these two particular provinces being specifically the target of the resurgence of terrorism since the Kabul takeover by the Taliban, reaching out to the young population in the far-flung areas. We do know for a fact that in major cities of the country, for example, when we talk about Rawalpindi, Islamabad, Karachi, Lahore, there is a possibility of a frequent interaction of the high-ranking officials of the armed forces, as Army Chief himself did. What about that particular youth in the far-flung areas? Could you share with our viewers a couple of strategies in order to reach out to those people, in order to correct their vision regarding as to the message or the narrative of these terrorists?
Look, Jawad, I think we have far more, important brains who are devising it, but why we are failing? Actually, the main issue which I feel is important, that you have to develop these areas, you have to extend the education, you have to extend the livelihood facilities, jobs to the tribal youth, not only in the troubled part of the bordering KP region, but also in Balochistan. If the youth don't have proper employment opportunities, they are denied those education facilities. Even the livelihood resources are very poor. There are no industries, there are no jobs to the people. So obviously these elements who are paying more than what even our normal employment opportunities here are. So definitely you would be, and then an important issue is the hostile people or the hostile countries who are investing in these youth. Still they are misusing the disgruntled Baloch. They are targeting those fitna al-Khawarij and the hostile militant elements who are already available for rent in these areas, especially in the Pak Afghan bordering region. So if these fighters, actually, if you are not extending them the proper care and take care of them and their strategies.
This particular very important point? I'd like to take this point to the other panelists also, to Admiral Shah and Mr. Durrani as well. Mr. Admiral Shah, when we talk about lack of opportunities in terms of education, employment and livelihood over there in the far-flung areas, especially along the border, as Mr. Zahir Sherazi has alluded to this particular fact as well. So does this particular vulnerability of this particular segment of youth in far-flung areas increase only just because of the lack of these resources over there, or is it also because of that very mindset that is inculcated right at the very outset of their existence, right from the childhood? How to address that particular thing?
I think socio-economic development is very necessary. It should be taken up as a priority by the government in far-flung areas, in rural areas. But interestingly, if you analyze the last couple of attacks in Balochistan or in Karachi were carried out by very educated people. Some were masters, some were MPhil students. They were in Karachi, they were studying in Turbat University also. So they did not have these problems. So the problem is that there is a narrative from other side, and there has to be a narrative, counter narrative from our side, which has to be embedded with our ideological, cultural and social values, and the real, the true, the correct values. So this counter narrative has to be spread all across Pakistan, in rural areas and in urban areas, be it socio-economically developed or not, because people have to be taken in fold, understand the principle of Trinity by Clausewitz.
That happens, if I might add one thing over here, doesn't that happen right at the grassroots, right at the very formative years of existence?
Of course, that has to be right from the grassroots level. If there is socio-economic development in the rural areas, in the downtrodden areas, the people will enjoy their lives, and kids will be going to school, and there the narrative will prevail. Understand the principle of Trinity by Clausewitz, Karl von Clausewitz. What he said no war can be fought if government, nation and armed forces are not in one line or are not aligned. So rightly said by Chief of the Army Staff also, that if until and unless Pakistani nation is standing behind Pakistan Army, it is not going to fall. So standing by of nation behind your armed forces and patronage by the government is the formula for winning any war, and this is the formula here also.
Right. Mr. Durrani, do we need a multi-pronged strategy when it comes to specifically reaching out to the youth in the far-flung areas, especially in Balochistan and KP, especially along the border with Afghanistan as well, which could be vulnerable because of, firstly, because they've been given and inculcated that particular mindset right from the start, and also later on having the strategy in order to provide them the socio-economic opportunities?
Jawad, I think we have to be realistic, and if we want to address the issues, then look at the issues which are at hand. If Balochistan cannot be mixed with what the TTP terrorists are doing. Balochistan is a different political, and it has to be addressed through political means. And let the elected people of the province should take the lead. They should be made responsible. Otherwise, they should be told to resign. Why are they in public life? Same is about the KP province. In there, I think, why these elected people, what are they doing? They are good for nothing then, in my view, because what is their role in terms of law and order? And then law and order is a provincial subject. it is, of course, this militancy, and it is a step beyond what a normal law and order situation is. But it has, in fact, aggravated because of the passage of time, and then the elected representatives have not been giving their full as far as taking the people along is concerned. So it is important. And then tackling with the militancy or other these terrorist issues, counter-terrorist terrorism strategy should be given and should be the job of the police. And then other armed forces and civil and military armed forces, paramilitary forces, they should be at the back of police. But police also needs political ownership, because whatever action they take, it has to be supported by the political people of the area. So then you can, in fact, launch a strategy. And let me also make it very clear that it is not going to be resolved in a day or two. It's going to be a long haul, but with persistent efforts and by taking the people along, I think we can succeed. So therefore, you may add many prompts as far as addressing these issues are concerned. And it is just not the youth issue. It is, for instance, when we talk about merger of Fatima in 2018, when it was moved, the federal government had promised 1 trillion rupees for the development of merged districts. But what happened? Till last year, until before, only 72 billion rupees were spent. So it causes disgruntlement, it causes disappointment. So that needs to be addressed. And by and large, if today you announce a Naib Qasid's job in Balochistan, 10,000 candidates turn up. So the unemployment issue has to be addressed and addressed on war footing. And that would, in fact, lure the youth. Rather than adopting a militancy path, they will come back and have their normal lives. So I think it has to be tackled on war footing, and then our elected people should be made responsible and answerable for bringing peace to these, especially to these two provinces. Yes.
Right, Mr. Sherazi, the Army Chief in his interaction also talked about how does Pakistan Army, its soldiers operate. Let me quote, the Pakistan Army soldiers fight like comrades. That is what they learn in army without feeling that who is Punjabi, Pakhtun, Balochi or Sindhi. This very phenomenon of being a single nation, irrespective of which ethnicity, which background do you belong to, when you join Pakistan Armed Forces, you become one unit and you fight like that, like comrades. Your understanding regarding this very thing which has been shared by the Army Chief?
Well, Jawad, I think definitely any military or any man in uniform, I think they are always ready to sacrifice. So I think it's a statement which giving a message of cohesion, that there is no difference, at least when the soldiers are in the battlefield. This is very important. I think it should not be, we should be like very clearly, eulogizing the sacrifices of Pakistani armed forces, the security personnel, the paramilitary troops, the police, everyone is there. But I think, this border issue and the volatile region, it has different elements like which have their interest. Maybe it's because of the geographical location of Pakistan, maybe because of the interest of the international community, maybe the US-led coalition have their own interest, the Central Asian republics have their own interest, the Middle East countries have their own interest, vis-a-vis if it comes to Gwadar and the Chinese BRI project. So there are different complex situations. What is important, I think, as Durrani Sahab was mentioning, that the job of the police is, take care of the law and order situation, but how much the police is capable enough, especially in KP and Balochistan, then how much the paramilitary troops are capable enough, what is the counter-terrorism CTD and other counter-terrorist fighting organizations, how much capable they are. And then obviously, like the development issues, how much has been spent in the development of the tribal districts which were merged in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa was the federal government, fair enough, and it has given those resources which were promised? I think no. Then if you want to devise a strategy, obviously you have to think about the development. You have to think about how you are going to police these regions, how you are going to, control the line order situation. For example, you must have this buffer zone. You must have a kind of border security force which would be permanently based there in the form of frontier constabulary. And that frontier constabulary is now in the port cities. It is on the security of the elite and the societal elite, the politicians. And at last, I think there is no political will. Yes, as Durrani Sahab was mentioning, that the people who have got elected from these bordering areas, what they are doing. Now the KP government have started an initiative. They are saying perhaps they would be having a TORs after discussing with the people, tribal people living on both sides of the border, and then they will engage the foreign office and the foreign ministry to take this issue with the Afghan government. It is very important, but I think the political wrangling between the center and the provinces, I think this is also a very important issue which has to be taken care.
As far as I remember, if I'm correct on this, please correct me if I'm wrong, it's the federal government which has been offering the provincial governments for the enhancement of the capacity of the police and also other law enforcement agencies if it is required in order to address this particular challenge of resurgence of terrorism.
Well, Jawad, this political statements apart, I think there is a clear, I don't think so the provincial government and the federal government is on one page in any of the issue. Yes, they do sit in the apex committees meeting, but I think they must be on one page in fighting terrorism. There is no point scoring in that, but I think...
I understand from your point is that similar sort of spirit as we saw in the wake of that particular horrific incident that happened at APS back in 2014. Then there was a national consensus that was evolved at that particular point in time, and then there was formulation of the National Action Plan as well. So that particular spirit in order to deal with this resurgence of terrorism, the consensus across the board when it comes to the federal government as well as the provincial government is concerned, it's very important. Let me go to Admiral Shah. Admiral Shah, this particular role of the provincial governments when the law and order situation to handle and address the issues related to that come under their purview. So how do you think, if the federal government is continuously asking if there is a requirement of enhancement of capacity of the law enforcement agencies, what sort of responsibility do you expect from the provincial governments in that regard?
I think provincial governments are the key stakeholders in this situation, and they have the resources allocated also. And whenever they desire, they get the resources, additional resources from federal government also. This is all federal government can do with them. I mean, now army is in direct contact with the terrorists or Khawarij. And as rightly mentioned out by both eminent speakers, that it should be the job of FC or police or law enforcement agencies, less army. Army is the last barrier, but our last barrier is in front. So all out support has already been given to the provinces. Now it is up to the provinces, how do they employ their resources and how do they get to the root of the problem and eradicate the root cause of the problem. Socio-economic development is one big issue, and then governance is one big issue, then lack of employment, then generating a strong counter narrative to what they have devised and they have propagated.
Okay, so Army Chief also talks about the kind of respect Islam has given to women, and he also emphasized on this particular thing that we won't allow this particular respect to be diminished. What's the significance of this statement? Is it to address that particular issue, what we have seen, especially after the Kabul takeover by the Taliban, the kind of measures they have brought in order to snub that very right, the fundamental freedoms of the women over there, whether it comes to their right to acquire education, whether their right to go and engage in any sort of employment?
We have seen it that whenever these people, they get power in some corner, the core of their philosophy is keeping women deprived of their rightful rights. We have seen it in Swat also, we have seen it in Fata also, and we have seen it in Afghanistan also. So I don't know what kind of philosophy drives that options for them, and I think rightly pointed out by Chief of Army Staff that women are no less than men in any field of life, and they should be given equal opportunity for that. Now, parda, hijab, these things are there, and I have seen in many countries, Muslim countries, that with all kind of hijab and parda and every compulsion, women have been leading several businesses and fields of life in different countries. So why not in Pakistan? So I think this is something that he pointed out towards that fact that in our society, in our culture, and in our religion, there is no bar on that, and women are as free as men. Keeping in view our cultural, social, moral values, they are as free as men.
Mr. Durrani, now when the Army Chief talks that he questions as to who are you referring to Khawarij to take away the maximum respect given by our religion to women, and he has also emphasized that this particular respect that's been granted by the religion itself to women, we won't allow it to be diminished. Your understanding regarding it?
Well, it's so obvious. I mean, when you talk about Islam, then definitely men and women have equal rights, especially as far as learning is concerned. So there are no two opinions about it. And more than that, it's just not Pakistan or any one of us. Rather, the OIC as a whole has condemned what action has been taken in Afghanistan, banning the girls to pursue education and their right to work. This is something which is a universal right granted to every citizen of a country, and under the international human rights laws to which Afghanistan has been a party. So they cannot snatch it. And then it is also strange that the Taliban authorities, they claim that it is according to the Islamic tenets, which is wrong, absolutely wrong. Yes, as per their conservative society, it is possible. And this is the reason. For instance, the conservative nature of the society prevalent along the border, both on Pakistani and Afghan side, is the evidence is polio virus, which is nowhere you will find anywhere in the world, but especially predominantly Pashtun areas. So this is unfortunate, and this is also tells a big story that those are ultra-conservative people. And then during the past 45 years of jihad, we in fact reinforced the conservative nature of the society. And then another thing which we should not forget when we talk about the Afghan Taliban, when it suits them, they use Rawaj, and when it suits them, they use Quran or Islam. So here, I think they are making an opportunistic use of the religion as well as. But at the end of the day, it is the power play, and on power play, the religion or ethnicity, they in fact become meaningless, and they only know that if they have power, they can dictate their terms. And this is what is precisely happening. Same is happening with the TTP people. They have not produced any religious scholar worth his salt or of any standing. So, and same is true about Afghan Taliban. They may have muftis and all that, but not a scholar of international standing. So this is something they have to learn. They have to learn that they are not living in islands. They are part of this world, and they have to live in this world. So these are the issues, these are the challenges which we also are facing, especially during the past 45 years, because it has not started with the coming to power by the Taliban in 2021. This conservativeness has been prevalent in our society. It had been propped up by certain vested interests throughout these over 4 decades. And now we are, tasting our own medicine. So I think there is a need to take drastic action. There's a need to go back to the drawing board and tell how to rule the country. So basic thing is bringing rule of law in the country in all respects, in all sections of the society, whether it is in education, whether it is in jobs, whether it is in doing our curbing smuggling and other, without implementing strict rule of law, forget about having any positive changes. And for instance, on terrorism, why I emphasize on this? Because this is their job. If they don't have the capacity, build the capacity. But it is counterterrorism throughout the world is police job. So because they meet the people on daily basis, on hourly basis. The intelligence agencies and others, they don't do that. So it's what I'm saying is that let's let the people who are assigned a job, they should do their job. And there should be political ownership for whatever police action is taken. That's very important, because if a Thanedar, he takes action, and if the terrorists try to hit him or his family, and if no one is supporting him, then and there is no political support, then I don't think they'll take the initiative. Similarly, they need equipment, they need resources, so those are to be built. And once you build them, you definitely you get positive results. Yes.
I get your point. Unfortunately, we're short of time. I'll have to go quickly to Mr. Sherazi for his closing comments regarding as to the findings of this particular report by the US Support and Sanctions Monitoring Team. The 35th report talks about the logistical support, the financial support to TTP of the Afghan Taliban, the kind of new recruitment centers in number of provinces it has mentioned. Also, this particular collaboration between TTP, Afghan Taliban, Al-Qaeda could turn into extra regional threat. How concerning are these findings?
Well, Jawad, I think they are very concerning. At least it's not for the first time. Earlier it has been mentioned that how the Kabul government is directly or indirectly patronizing the terrorist elements, whether it must be maybe because of their, the code of Pashtun Wali, or maybe because of religious affiliation, accepting them as their jihadi brothers. But one thing is very important, they have a very symbiotic relationship. They're thriving and surviving by supporting each other. Kabul intentionally and unintentionally want to keep the Pakistan's western border volatile through these terrorist elements. And I think that's a part of a strategy. Like earlier we were mentioning about the religious sentiments and religious affiliation, how Kabul, which had been fighting an infidel US-led coalition, now is the third largest recipient of the USID and the international community's financial assistance. Is it like, according to the Sharia, to accept such a huge number of dollars from an infidel state? No. And obviously the radicalization, the religion and the ethnicity, it has always been used by these warlords, these terrorist elements, these religious extremist elements to grab power and portray themselves as the true, leaders of Islam. But I don't think so it is. Actually, the message and the unit report, I think the Pakistani Foreign Office as well as the Pakistani state should now take up this issue very seriously with the international community, because it's the third time Afghanistan had been left alone, again being a safe haven for these terrorist elements, a new battle and proxy zone for those international proxies to...
Zahir Shah, Sherazi, security analyst. Unfortunately, I seek your pardon for the interjection over here. We're short of time. I'll have to wrap up the show because of a breaking news coming in. Mr. Zahir Shah, Sherazi, security analyst, joining us on Skype. Mr. Asif Durrani, former ambassador, former Pakistan special representative for Afghanistan. Thank you very much. Your time also, sir, for being with us on the show tonight. Mr. Rear Admiral, retired Faisal Shah, senior analyst, joining us in the studio. Thank you very much for your time also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.